The message arrived at Astrahaven during the artificial dawn cycle, when most of the colony was beginning its day. Lights shifted from night blue to soft gold across the city domes, and the great orbital mirrors slowly adjusted their angle to mimic a rising sun. For a brief moment, everything felt normal. Then every screen went black. Transit rails froze. Air traffic halted mid-ascent. Even personal wrist displays flickered and died. A silence spread that felt heavier than any alarm. People stopped walking. Conversations ended halfway through sentences. Children looked up at their parents, sensing something was wrong even before they understood it. Inside the central command spire, Commander Elias Ward was already on his feet. The blackout lasted exactly 7 seconds. When the displays returned, they showed only one image, a vast stretch of space, dark and endless, filled with unfamiliar stars. At the center hovered a shape that did not look like any ship humanity had ever built. It was enormous, smooth, and wrong in a way that made the mind resist understanding it. No engines were visible, no weapons. It simply existed, like a shadow carved out of the universe itself. A voice followed. Calm. Cold. Perfectly translated. Attention, human civilization. This is the Dominion. Your species has been observed, measured, and judged. You will surrender all political authority, military assets, and interstellar territories within one standard cycle. Compliance will ensure your survival. Resistance will result in total eradication. The message repeated once. Then the screens went dark again. Across Astrahaven, panic exploded. People shouted. Emergency alarms began to wail. Security forces rushed into the streets, trying to restore order, but fear moved faster than training. News channels came back online with frantic commentators talking over each other, replaying the message again and again. On Earth, Mars, and dozens of settled worlds, the same transmission had appeared at the same time. Humanity had not just been contacted, it had been threatened. Inside the command spire, Elias stood perfectly still, staring at the frozen image of the alien vessel. He was not young, but he was not old either. His hair showed the first signs of gray, earned through years of crisis management rather than age. He had seen wars, revolts, and disasters. None of them felt like this. This wasn't a broadcast, said Lena Price, the station's chief analyst, her voice tight. It was a system override. They walked into every network we have like it was unlocked. How many ships? Elias asked. That's the problem, she replied. We don't know. That image might not even be a ship. It could be a relay or a projection. Our deep sensors show disturbances beyond the system boundary, but nothing solid. Elias folded his hands behind his back. They said one standard cycle. Yes, 30 planetary days. Around them, officers and technicians worked in controlled chaos. Data streamed in from every human world. Fear levels were high. Military readiness was climbing. Some commanders were already calling for immediate retaliation. Elias did not answer them. He had heard threats before. This one was different, not because of the words, but because of the tone. There was no anger in it, no hatred, just certainty. They believe this is already over, he said quietly. Lena looked at him. Sir? They believe we have no choice. Within hours, an emergency council formed, linking leaders from across human space. The debate was fierce. Some argued for diplomacy. Others demanded a show of force, even if it was symbolic. A few suggested surrender, reasoning that survival mattered more than pride. Elias listened. He spoke little. As the hours passed, more data came in. Long-range probes detected massive gravitational distortions far beyond the outer planets. Something was there. Something big. Something waiting. The Dominion did not need to rush. On the second day, a second message arrived. Shorter this time. You have not responded. This delay is noted. Compliance remains your optimal outcome. No threats, no warnings. Just a reminder. Public fear grew sharper. Markets crashed. Evacuation ships filled beyond capacity. Religious groups gathered in the streets, praying to gods both old and newly invented. Across the networks, one question echoed again and again. Why aren't we answering? Elias asked himself the same question as he stood alone in the spire's observation chamber. Below him, Astrahaven glowed, unaware of how fragile it truly was. Humanity had spread far, built fast, and grown comfortable. They had avoided large-scale war for generations. Many believed that made them weak. The Dominion certainly did. Late that night, Elias accessed a file that was not listed in any public archive. It required authorization codes that no one had used in decades. The system paused, as if surprised to be asked, then opened. The title was plain. Continuity Protocol. he read in silence. The protocol had been written long before Asterhaven existed, before humanity had left its home system in earnest. It was not a battle plan. It was a philosophy. A decision made after humanity studied its own history and the likely behavior of intelligent life beyond Earth. The conclusion was simple and terrifying. If humanity was ever faced with an enemy that demanded total submission, negotiation was already impossible. The protocol did not call for victory. It called for survival at any cost. Elias closed the file and stared out into space. For the first time since the message arrived, his expression hardened. On the 5th day, Dominion ships crossed into the outer system. They did not attack. They did not communicate. They simply appeared, massive silhouettes drifting just beyond the orbit of the farthest planet. Human sensors struggled to track them, as if the ships existed slightly out of phase with reality. Military commanders demanded permission to engage. Elias denied it. The decision caused outrage. News commentators called him a coward. Politicians accused him of freezing under pressure. Across human space, people screamed for action, any action, to prove they were not helpless. Elias accepted it all without comment. He spent his nights reviewing reports and old records, looking for patterns. The Dominion had contacted other species before. The archives were thin, but clear enough. Every civilization that had surrendered still vanished within a few generations. Those that fought vanished sooner. There were no recorded survivors. On the 10th day, Dominion forces began disabling unmanned stations. Clean strikes, no explosions. Entire facilities went dark and silent, drifting uselessly through space. The message was clear. This is what restraint looks like. Panic reached a breaking point. A group of colony governors issued a public demand that Earth respond. If the Central Command would not act, they would negotiate on their own. Elias watched the broadcast from his office. He felt no anger, only a deep, steady resolve. "They still think this is about politics," he said to Lena, who stood beside him. "What is it about, then?" she asked. "About misunderstanding," he replied. "They think because we didn't conquer our neighbors, we don't know how to end a threat. On the 15th day, the council voted to send a reply. The message was drafted carefully, respectful, neutral. It asked for proof of peaceful intent for talks for time. Elias had the authority to approve it. Didn't. Instead, he issued a single command. All human networks went silent. No messages. No signals. No responses of any kind. Even civilian broadcasts were shut down. To the rest of the universe, humanity disappeared. The reaction was immediate. Protests erupted. Some commanders threatened resignation. Others quietly supported the move, sensing something they could not name. In the dark of space, the Dominion paused. They did not understand silence. To them, it meant fear. Collapse. The final stage before surrender. Their fleets moved closer. Elias stood once more in the observation chamber as the stars shifted, distorted by the presence of the enemy. Humanity looked small from here. Fragile. But not unprepared. Far beyond the reach of Dominion sensors, systems older than any living human began to wake. Machines that had never been tested, protocols that had never been spoken aloud. Elias rested his hand on the cold glass and whispered, not as a threat, but as a truth. They should have asked who we were before they told us to kneel. The first day of the final cycle began, and humanity still did not answer. The Dominion fleet advanced slowly, almost leisurely, through the dark expanse of space. Their massive ships moved like predators, confident and unafraid. Every strike they had prepared for humanity would be devastating. But so far, the humans had done nothing. They did not fire, they did not respond, and they did not retreat. Silence ruled. In the central command of Asterhaven, Commander Elias Ward watched the approaching armada through the observation dome. Sensors picked up movement beyond the orbit of the outermost planets. Ships with hulls larger than entire city blocks drifted in formation, dark and endless. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy dozens of human colonies in minutes. "Sir, our outer stations are reporting losses," said Lena Price, her voice steady but tense. "We are losing unmanned mining platforms and communication satellites. The strikes are precise, surgical. No collateral damage, just removal." Elias nodded. He had seen the data. Every station disabled vanished from the network as if it had never existed. "They are testing us," he said. "They think we are weak, that silence means surrender." A young officer, Miko Tan, spoke from the console. "They are not moving to Earth yet. Should we—" "Do nothing," Elias interrupted.
"They are confident. Let 'em be."
Across human space, Fear had begun to take a physical shape. Civilians abandoned stations and colonies. Ships were overloaded with refugees. Families moved between worlds in panic, often getting lost in the crowded traffic of interstellar lanes. Markets collapsed as fear spread, and governments argued about the best way to respond. Some suggested sending envoys. Others demanded attacks. The Dominion, for its part, interpreted human hesitation as weakness. Their sensors had detected the silence from every world. Their historians had studied humanity's records and concluded that humans were an unremarkable species, cautious and indecisive. Meanwhile, in a quiet, heavily restricted lab on Asterhaven, Dr. Mara Solis pored over the old archives. She had requested access to files that had been classified for generations. The records described defense systems, contingency plans, and last-resort strategies that humans had developed in secret. They had not been created to conquer. They were designed to survive. Mara whispered to herself as she read the documents. This is bigger than anything they expect. Elias entered the lab, standing behind her. What have you found? Plans, Mara said. Not for war, for survival. Everything from satellite defenses to artificial gravitational traps. Humans didn't prepare to fight ships. They prepared to erase threats completely. Some of these systems, they can bend space itself. Elias frowned. No one has tested these for combat. Are they even functional? They have been tested in simulations, yes, but in reality, we don't know. Mara hesitated. If we use them, we can't undo it. Elias's eyes narrowed. We don't need undoing. We need them to understand what happens when humans are pushed too far. As the Dominion fleet moved closer to Earth's orbit, human military commanders demanded action. Every general wanted to fight to show strength, but Elias refused every request. He had seen enough to know that a direct confrontation would not only fail, it could invite total destruction. Instead, humans moved their fleets in ways the Dominion could not track easily. Ships slipped through dark corridors of space, appearing where the enemy expected nothing. Small task forces disabled minor targets, only to vanish before reinforcements could arrive. The Dominion called it a retreat. They thought humanity was weak, unprepared, and running. On the seventh day, one of the Dominion's scanning ships detected something unusual. A human vessel had appeared near the outer rim, its energy signatures inconsistent with any known ship type. Scientists aboard the Dominion ship tried to analyze it. The readings did not match physics as they knew it. They are building something, one of the Dominion analysts said. Something large, something unnatural. The human vessel disappeared before the Dominion could respond. Across their fleet, whispers of fear began to spread. A few commanders suggested caution, but the council dismissed them. Humanity had always been weak, they reasoned. Fear was the only logical explanation for the strange activity. Inside Asterhaven, Elias met with his council again. They think our silence is fear, he said. They do not understand that we have never fought wars like they imagine. They think this is the only way a species reacts when threatened. And what is it like, then? Asked Mara. Preparedness? Elias said simply. We survive, and when survival requires it, we end threats entirely. By the 10th day, Dominion strikes had disabled more of humanity's outer facilities. Every station that vanished, every satellite that failed, only reinforced the enemy's confidence. To them, humans were crumbling. Their historians wrote reports predicting a final surrender in less than a week. Yet inside hidden command centers across human space, engineers and soldiers were moving silently. They prepared devices and systems the Dominion had never imagined. These were not weapons designed to shoot, to explode, or to conquer. They were instruments of control over the very laws of physics. Small fleets became decoys, empty systems became traps, and humanity waited. In the shadows, Mara Solis ran simulations. Each scenario involved massive gravitational collapses, temporary black holes, and localized space-time disruptions. The simulations showed the destruction of entire fleets in minutes. She shared the results with Elias. They will never see it coming, she said. And when it happens, it cannot be undone. Elias nodded. We are not firing the first shot, he said. But the first shot has already been planned for us, in the way they never imagined. As the Dominion approached the inner planets, they intercepted the unusual silence that continued across human space. They scanned constantly for signals, for broadcasts, for communications, but none came. Their arrogance grew. Every fleet movement, every orbital adjustment was calculated with the certainty of victory. They believed humans had no strategy. They assumed fear ruled every decision, and in the observation chamber of Asterhaven, Elias watched them. They think they know us, he said softly. They have no idea. Then came the first warning. The outermost human colonies reported a strange gravitational anomaly. Stations began to drift slightly, as if invisible hands were pushing them. Dominion sensors caught it too. Scientists could not explain it. Engineers scrambled to recalibrate instruments. And in Asterhaven, Mara Solis simply smiled faintly. They've stepped into the wrong place, she whispered. The Dominion fleet hesitated, unsure whether to continue or retreat. Their confidence had begun to shake. Still, they moved forward, unwilling to appear weak. Across human space, small teams carried out coordinated operations. They did not fire on the enemy. They did not engage in battle. They created illusions, disturbances, and traps designed to confuse and misdirect. Entire sectors seemed empty one moment and filled with ships the next. Dominion commanders reported seeing impossible movements, fleets that appeared in two places at once, systems that vanished entirely. Panic began to ripple through the alien ranks. Their historians had recorded nothing like this. Every attempt to predict human behavior failed. For the first time, the conquerors felt the uncertainty of their prey. Elias and Mara watched the reports in silence. They still believe our silence is fear, Mara said. Yes, Elias replied. And that is why they will not stop. They will push us to the edge, thinking we cannot strike back. But we are already striking. We just strike differently. And so the stage was set. Humanity appeared weak, retreating, afraid. The Dominion believed victory was within their grasp. They saw humans as cautious, indecisive, unprepared for war. They were wrong, because the humans had never fought in the way the Dominion expected. They had prepared for extinction, and when humanity moved, they would not fight to survive. They would fight to end the threat completely. The silence stretched across the void like a heavy curtain. The Dominion advanced, unaware of the traps awaiting them. The humans held their positions, hidden, calculating, waiting for the precise moment when survival would demand action. And in the darkness, Elias whispered again to Mara, "Let them believe they are winning. The moment they realize the truth, it will be too late." The countdown to confrontation had begun. The outermost human colonies had long been abandoned by most civilians, yet the stations still held secret equipment hidden for decades. These machines had been built quietly, without announcement, in places so remote the Dominion would never think to check. Mara Solis had been one of the few who knew their true purpose, and now she oversaw their activation. In a control room deep below the surface of an abandoned mining station, the lights flickered as the systems powered on for the first time. Panels hummed, and monitors displayed readings that no human had ever seen. The instruments were not conventional weapons. They did not fire beams or missiles. They bent reality itself. Gravitational fields shifted, local space-time distorted, and sensors registered impossible movements. "Are you sure this'll work?" asked Lieutenant Eric Vale, his voice tense. He had been trained for conventional combat all his life, not for this kind of unknown technology. Mara looked at him with calm determination. "It doesn't matter if we are sure," she said. "What matters is that it cannot fail. The Dominion has never fought this kind of war. Their advantage ends the moment we use it." Meanwhile, Commander Elias Ward observed the Dominion fleet through the observation dome at Asterhaven. The massive ships loomed against the blackness of space, their shapes so alien they seemed almost like living creatures rather than machines. Each ship was capable of destroying dozens of human colonies, yet they had not yet moved beyond the outer planets. "They are confident," Elias said quietly to Mara, who stood beside him. "They believe our silence is fear. That confidence will be their undoing." A small team of human operatives was sent on stealth missions to deploy devices in the outer rim of the system. Their ships were tiny compared to the Dominion armada, almost invisible against the dark stars. They did not fight. They did not make noise. They simply moved, planting the instruments that would turn space itself into a trap. One of the Dominion scouts detected unusual readings and sent reports back to the fleet. The sensors reported shifts in gravity, objects appearing and disappearing in impossible ways, and signals that contradicted every known law of physics. Analysts on the Dominion command ships argued furiously, trying to understand the anomalies. "This is impossible," said a scientist named Kalen, his voice trembling. "The laws of space cannot bend like this. Something is interfering on a massive scale." The Dominion fleet assumed it was a technical error. Human technology had always been primitive compared to theirs. They adjusted instruments, recalibrated sensors, and ignored the readings. Confidence returned. Back on Asterhaven, Elias and Mara watched the progress reports in silence. "They will not stop," Mara said. "They will push forward, thinking nothing can harm them." "Yes," Elias replied. That is exactly what we need. The first human device activated silently near a distant asteroid belt. It shifted local gravity in ways the Dominion could not predict. A fleet of Dominion drones passed through the belt, and within seconds several were crushed by distortions in space. Others disappeared entirely. The sensors showed nothing. The Dominion command concluded that the drones had suffered mechanical failure. Elias allowed himself a small smile. The Dominion believed they were witnessing accidents. Next, another human device activated near an uninhabited planet. The sensors on Dominion ships registered a sudden collapse of gravity, pulling entire sections of a fleet toward the planet's surface. Ships were ripped apart by forces they could not resist. No explosions occurred. Nothing remained for anyone to see. Panic began to spread through the alien fleet. Commanders demanded explanations. "How can entire ships vanish?" one shouted. "Where is the evidence?" Kalen, the scientist, tried to explain. "It is not destruction as we know it. The ships are erased. It is as if they never existed." The Dominion Council refused to accept this. They had studied countless civilizations. They had never encountered a race capable of this. Their sense of superiority began to crumble. On Asterhaven, Elias received reports from hidden operatives. Entire fleets had vanished without a trace. Communications from occupied stations went dead. Systems that had once been reliable now failed in unpredictable ways. Mara Solis reviewed the readings. "We are only beginning," she said. Elias turned to her. "Do we stop now?" "No," Mara replied. "They believe they have the advantage. They will continue to advance. We wait until they are fully committed." By the 15th day, the Dominion fleet had moved closer to Earth. Their arrogance was complete. They believed the humans were retreating, unorganized and unprepared. Entire colonies had been evacuated. Outer stations had been lost. The Dominion saw only weakness. But humanity had not retreated. They had only staged their presence. The real defenses were hidden, ready to activate at the right moment. The Dominion did not know the locations of the human devices. They did not know the scale of the traps. They did not understand the danger until it was too late. In a command room beneath the surface of a distant asteroid, a human operative named Taryn Kessler activated another device. She watched as a small Dominion fleet approached. The readings on her monitors showed gravitational distortions growing. The fleet was pulled apart silently, erased from existence in minutes. Back on Asterhaven, Elias received the report. "It begins," he said softly. The Dominion fleet finally realized that humans were not weak. They had underestimated humanity. They had assumed fear, retreat, and indecision. They had assumed that silence was weakness. It was not. The humans had prepared in secret for generations. Every contingency had been planned. Every possibility had been considered. The Dominion had never encountered a species capable of this kind of foresight. Panic spread through the alien ranks. Commanders argued about strategy, but every attempt to respond failed. Their sensors could not track human movements. Their instruments could not measure the distortions in space. Their ships were disappearing without explanation. Elias watched quietly, his hands resting on the cold glass of the observation dome. "They finally understand," he said. "Humans are not predictable. Humans are not weak." Mara Solis stood beside him, reviewing the data. "And they will learn too late. On the outer edge of the system, human task forces continued to move silently. They deployed devices, monitored fleets, and erased Dominion ships. Each action was precise, deliberate, and unavoidable. For the first time, the Dominion realized that they were not fighting a conventional species. They were facing a civilization that had prepared for survival in ways they could not comprehend. Every advantage the Dominion thought they held vanished in an instant. Inside the alien fleet, Kalen spoke again, his voice shaking. "We misjudged them. We thought we understood their behavior. We thought we were in control. We were wrong." The Council refused to admit failure. They ordered continued attacks, convinced that persistence would eventually bring surrender. But the human traps were already active across the system. Ships were pulled apart, fleets were erased, and communications failed. On Asterhaven, Elias reviewed the reports in silence. He did not celebrate. He did not cheer. Humanity had survived this long because they had prepared. Victory, if it could be called that, was not yet complete. Mara Solis looked at him. "They will push further. They will try to strike Earth directly." "They will not succeed," Elias replied. "Not if we remain patient. Not if we strike at the right moment." The Dominion fleet moved closer to the inner planets, unaware of the traps that surrounded them. They believed in their superiority, in their technology, and their ability to dominate. They believed that humans were weak, and yet With every step, they fell deeper into a silent trap. Across human space, the devices activated in a chain. Entire Dominion squadrons vanished in seconds. The aliens could not explain it, could not track it, could not respond. Their fleet began to fracture under pressure. Commanders argued, but no solution existed. Elias watched the events unfold. "They demanded our surrender," he said. "They thought it would be simple. They were wrong. We are not weak. We are not afraid. And we will survive, no matter the cost." Mara nodded, her eyes fixed on the monitors. "And when the moment comes, they will see what humanity is capable of." The humans continued their silent operations, erasing Dominion fleets, reshaping space, and bending reality itself. Every step was controlled, calculated, and precise. The Dominion had believed they were superior. They had believed they understood the humans. They had been wrong. By the end of the third week, the Dominion fleet was in chaos. Ships were missing, communications failed, and their confidence had turned to fear. Human operations had not only survived, but had begun to dominate the battlefield in ways the aliens could not comprehend. On Asterhaven, Elias stood before the observation dome and watched the stars. The Dominion ships were no longer a threat in the way they had imagined. They were lost, confused, and vulnerable. He turned to Mara Solis. "This is only the beginning," he said. "We do not fight like they do. We do not win like they do. We survive like no one else can." Mara nodded silently. "And when we strike fully, there will be no mistake. Humanity will not be defeated. Not today, not ever." Outside, the stars continued to shine. Space remained silent, waiting. But for the Dominion, the silence was no longer comforting. It was deadly. And humanity, patient and prepared, waited for the moment when survival became action, and when the threat that demanded surrender would finally understand the cost of underestimating them. The humans had prepared for extinction. They had planned for every possibility. And now, they were ready to turn the hunters into the hunted. The Dominion fleet had stopped moving as a single force. Ships hovered in strange, uneven patterns, drifting in space like confused predators. Commanders argued over displays, pointing at readings that no one could interpret. Some vessels disappeared without warning, erased from sensors in an instant. Others twisted and spun as if caught in invisible hands. Fear, for the first time in their history, had entered the Dominion. Inside Asterhaven, Commander Elias Ward watched the chaos unfold. He had anticipated this moment, though he did not yet know how far the Dominion would go in their panic. Mara Solis stood beside him, monitoring multiple readings. "They're losing control," she said quietly. "Their systems can't keep up. They thought they understood space. They don't understand us." Outside the city domes, small human fleets moved unseen. They did not attack openly. Their ships were tiny, almost invisible against the blackness of space. Every move they made was precise, calculated to avoid direct confrontation while setting the stage for complete domination. These fleets were not meant to win by force alone. They were meant to erase the Dominion's advantage entirely. Lieutenant Eric Vale, overseeing one of the outer task groups, checked the status of deployed devices. "We've confirmed 3 Dominion squadrons removed from reality," he reported. No survivors, no debris, nothing. Sensors can't even detect residual energy." "Good," Elias said. "Keep monitoring. Let them realize what they're facing, piece by piece." Panic spreads faster than their weapons. On the Dominion command ship, Callan tried to make sense of the reports. "Our scouts see nothing. Entire fleets are gone. The humans, they are not behaving logically. They are not fighting. They are planning." A senior officer barked orders. "Concentrate fire. Destroy any vessels we can detect." The Dominion fleets fired blindly at areas where their sensors suggested human activity. The results were predictable. Beams passed through nothing. Missiles detonated harmlessly in empty space. Energy readings suggested distortions, but nothing tangible remained. Every attempt to attack only confirmed to the Dominion that something was deeply wrong. Meanwhile, human operatives continued to move through hidden corridors in space. Task forces led by Captain Lyra Vance deployed new devices near Dominion supply routes and hyperspace nodes. Each deployment created invisible traps, chips that passed through activated gravitational distortions or vanished into small pockets of warped space. No alarm, no sound, only disappearance. On Asterhaven, Elias leaned over the observation console. "They think they can outpace us," he said. "They think they can predict our moves. They cannot." They have no idea how prepared we are. Mara added, they are learning the hard way. Every ship they lose is another lesson they cannot teach themselves. In the outer systems, a Dominion convoy carrying vital supplies approached a sector near a human-deployed device. The vessel commander noticed the readings changing. Gravity shifted slightly, instruments failed, and the ship's structure strained under forces it was not designed to withstand. What is happening? The commander shouted. Report immediately. Sensors could not answer. Crew members panicked as equipment failed. Structural supports warped. Within moments, the entire convoy was gone, leaving no trace of itself. Across the Dominion fleet, panic spread rapidly. Commanders realized they were not facing a simple enemy. They were facing humans who had prepared for the impossible. Analysts argued that such technology should not exist, that entire fleets could not simply disappear. Admiral Tyron, leading one of the Dominion sectors, spoke to his officers. We underestimated them. We have been blind. Every assumption we made about human behavior was wrong. They are not afraid. They are precise. They are deadly. In the midst of the chaos, human operatives launched diversionary tactics. Small ships appeared briefly in multiple sectors, transmitting signals that mimicked human communications. Dominion forces moved to intercept, only to find nothing there. Entire fleets chased phantoms, wasting fuel, energy, and resources. Inside Asterhaven, Elias observed all of it. He did not celebrate. Humanity's goal was not merely to win. It was to end a threat entirely. Every fleet removed, every vessel erased, every false signal sent contributed to the strategic advantage. Every step counts, Elias said. They are panicking because we are controlling the battlefield without showing ourselves. Mara monitored the hyperspace corridors. They are relying on speed, on mobility. We have taken that from them. Every route is monitored, every jump is dangerous. Their confidence will turn to fear before they reach Earth. At the edge of the system, Captain Lyra Vance watched as a Dominion dreadnought approached her position. She did not fire. She activated a nearby device that twisted local space. The dreadnought's engines failed, and it drifted helplessly. Systems flickered, then went dark. In minutes, it was gone. The Dominion fleet commander received the transmission reporting the loss. His face paled. Impossible, he whispered. How can this be happening? Back on Asterhaven, Elias considered the broader picture. Humanity's patience was a weapon. The Dominion had expected immediate conflict, yet humans had remained silent, waiting, preparing, and shaping the battlefield. Every act of restraint amplified the enemy's panic. This is how we win, Elias said. Not by charging blindly, but by letting them make mistakes. Mara studied the monitors. They will try direct action next. They will send ships toward Earth. They will try to destroy what they cannot understand. That is when the true plan begins. In the Dominion fleet, confusion reigned. Ships no longer obeyed orders reliably. Entire squadrons vanished without warning. Commanders grew desperate, blaming each other. Fear had replaced confidence, doubt had replaced strategy, and hesitation had replaced action. Lieutenant Eric Vale reported from a remote station. We've removed over half of their active fleet from the outer systems. They are collapsing under their own misjudgment. Communications are down. They are panicking. Elias nodded. Good. Let them believe they are losing control. The moment they strike recklessly will be the moment they seal their fate. The Dominion Council convened in urgent emergency sessions. Some suggested surrender. Others insisted on continued attack. Arguments broke down into shouting matches. Analysts presented reports that were incomplete, contradictory, and terrifying. Ships continued to vanish. Fleets fragmented. And still, no human ship had fired a single weapon directly. On Asterhaven, Mara Solis activated the final phase of a deployment sequence. Devices across multiple sectors synchronized, hyperspace corridors shifted, gravity wells expanded. Space itself became an obstacle to the Dominion. Ships that had been retreating now drifted helplessly, trapped in distortions they could neither escape nor destroy. Elias observed the results quietly. The Dominion fleet had transformed from predator to prey. Every command they issued failed. Every maneuver they attempted was countered not with fire, but with human preparation and patience. Captain Lyra Vance transmitted a report. The enemy is trapped. We have them where we want them. Every fleet that moves into the inner system will encounter the same. Their own arrogance is guiding them to destruction. Elias turned to Mara. They will never see it coming. They believe they could conquer without understanding us. They believed in their superiority. That is their weakness. The Dominion fleet began to fracture further. Ships attempted to retreat, only to become ensnared in gravitational distortions. Supply lines were cut. Communication channels failed entirely. Commanders no longer coordinated. Confusion had become universal. Across the hidden stations, humans monitored every movement. Each erasure of a Dominion fleet reinforced the inevitability of what was to come. No human ship had been destroyed, no civilian world had been harmed, and yet the enemy's power was crumbling. Elias spoke quietly in the observation chamber. They demanded our surrender, he said. They expected fear, indecision, weakness. What they found was preparation, patience, and precision. They will not recover. Mara studied the systems. We've given them enough time to realize the truth. Soon they will understand that they are not facing the humans they expected. They are facing the humans they underestimated, and once that understanding hits them, there will be no turning back. In the outer reaches, Dominion ships drifted helplessly. Generals argued over fleets that no longer existed. Scientists tried to analyze the distortions, but every conclusion failed. Ships continued to vanish. Systems failed. The fleet was disintegrating under its own assumptions, and humanity had not even revealed its full strength. Lieutenant Eric Vale reported, "We are controlling the battlefield completely. Every route is monitored. Every fleet is vulnerable. The Dominion has no chance to regroup." Elias nodded. "Let them panic. Let them collapse. Let them learn the consequences of misjudging humanity." And so, in the cold darkness of space, humans remained unseen, silent, and patient. They had prepared for centuries for this moment. They had planned for survival in a way no other species had ever imagined. Every Dominion fleet that vanished reinforced the lesson. Humans were not to be underestimated. By the end of the 4th week, the Dominion fleet had been reduced to scattered fragments. Panic had replaced strategy. Fear had replaced confidence. Every maneuver they attempted only drove them further into traps prepared by human operatives. Elias stood before the observation dome, looking out at the scattered ships. "They demanded our surrender," he said quietly, "and every step they took brought them closer to extinction." Mara Solis added, "We have taught them patience, precision, and preparation. They will never forget it." The Dominion fleet was no longer a threat. They were confused, broken, and trapped. And humanity, hidden and silent, controlled every step of their downfall. The stage was set for the next phase. Humanity had not yet fired a single conventional shot, yet the conquerors were learning the most important lesson of all. To misjudge humans was to invite destruction. The Dominion fleet was in chaos. Scattered ships drifted in unpredictable orbits, communications had collapsed, and commanders could not coordinate. Every attempt to regain control failed. Entire squadrons had vanished without warning, leaving no debris, no signals, and no explanation. Fear had taken root where confidence once reigned. On Asterhaven, Commander Elias Ward watched the reports in silence. His observation dome displayed the positions of remaining Dominion vessels, fragmented and uncoordinated. Mara Solis monitored the hidden devices throughout the system, ensuring that every fleet movement by the Dominion triggered the traps they had prepared years in advance. "They are begging for guidance," Mara said quietly. "They think surrender is their only option. They do not know they are already trapped." Elias nodded. "Let them try. Let them send envoys. They will realize too late the negotiation is impossible. We prepared for this, and it cannot be undone." A transmission arrived from deep within the Dominion fleet. It was unexpected. Their leader spoke cautiously, offering proposals of peace, surrender, and coexistence. The message was polite, almost pleading. Humanity had not fired a single direct weapon, yet the Dominion believed they had no choice but to appeal. Elias read the message, his expression unreadable. "They still believe they can survive," he said. Mara responded, "They do not understand the scale of what we have prepared. They are asking for mercy when it is already too late." Across human space, hidden operatives continued to monitor Dominion movements. Every fleet that advanced toward Earth or human colonies encountered gravitational distortions, warped hyperspace corridors, and invisible traps. Ships vanished as if they had never existed. Those that survived were disoriented, unable to regroup, and increasingly desperate. Captain Lyra Vance oversaw one of the outer task groups. She observed a Dominion convoy attempting to retreat. "They are panicking," she reported. "Every attempt to escape fails. They are trapped by their own arrogance and our preparation." Elias turned to Mara. "They will realize too late that they misjudged us. They believed in our weakness. They were wrong." Mara checked her instruments. "Once the final devices are active near the inner planets, there will be no chance for them to recover. Their fleets are already collapsing. The extinction of the threat is inevitable. Inside the Dominion fleet, chaos reigned. Commanders shouted orders that could not be carried out. Ships disappeared mid-maneuver. Supply lines were cut. Communications failed. Fear had replaced confidence. They had thought humans were simple, cautious, and afraid. They were learning at last that humanity was precise, patient, and deadly. Admiral Tyron tried to rally his forces. "Hold position! Do not panic," he shouted. But his voice carried little weight. Sensors failed to respond. Squadrons vanished. Orders were ignored as pilots fled, froze, or were pulled into spatial distortions. On Asterhaven, Elias watched every movement. "They demanded our surrender," he said softly. "And every step they took brought them closer to extinction. They cannot understand it, and that is why we survive," Mara added. "They have no idea that Project Blackwake cannot be stopped. Once the devices are activated, their fate is sealed." The Dominion sent envoys again, offering concessions, territory, and even technology. Elias read the proposal silently. Humanity had no need for discussion. The Dominion had already reached the point where survival depended not on negotiation but on understanding that the humans they faced could not be defeated by conventional means. "They believe in their logic," Elias said, "but logic cannot save them now. We have prepared for every possibility, and they cannot account for it." At the edge of the system, human task forces continued their operations. Devices activated simultaneously across multiple sectors. Hyperspace corridors became unstable. Gravitational distortions ripped through fleets. Dominion ships vanished. Sensors failed. Systems collapsed. Entire fleets ceased to exist in minutes. Captain Lyra Vance observed from a hidden station. "They are gone," she said. "Half the remaining fleets are gone in an instant. There is nothing left for them to hold on to." Mara Solis monitored the results from Asterhaven. And this is only the beginning. The moment we activate the inner system devices, even the fleets near Earth will vanish. Elias spoke quietly, almost to himself. "They demanded our surrender. They expected fear, indecision, and weakness. What they found was patience, precision, and inevitability. Humanity cannot be defeated by threats. Only by extinction itself, which they cannot survive." Inside the Dominion command structure, fear turned to desperation. Some factions tried to flee the system, only to be caught in the distortions that humans had prepared. Others attempted to communicate with Asterhaven, begging for guidance, asking for mercy. The humans remained silent. Silence was the only message needed. Lieutenant Eric Vale reported from a remote station. "The outer fleets are completely neutralized. Inner fleets are disoriented. Communication with command is impossible. Dominion forces are collapsing." Elias nodded. "Let them understand the consequence of underestimating humanity. Let them see that we do not need to fight like they do. Let them feel the inevitability of their failure." Mara checked the synchronization of the inner system devices. "Everything is ready. When activated, the Dominion fleets near Earth will have no chance. There will be no escape. We do not need to fire a single shot directly. Their extinction is already underway." In the Dominion fleet, Admiral Tyron struggled to maintain order. "We must retreat," he shouted. "Pull back to safe zones. Regroup." It was too late. Every movement triggered new distortions. Ships vanished mid-jump. Communication networks failed. Supply lines were severed. Panic spread like wildfire. No command could control the situation. Their fleets collapsed under the weight of their own assumptions. On Asterhaven, Elias and Mara observed the final stages. "They asked for surrender," Elias said, "and we gave them extinction instead. They cannot comprehend it. They cannot stop it, and they cannot survive it." Captain Vance monitored the activation of the inner system devices. "All remaining Dominion fleets are being neutralized," she said. "Their technology cannot counter this. They are disappearing in seconds." Mara turned to Elias. "They still think they can negotiate. They still believe surrender might save them. They are wrong. There is no negotiation for extinction." Elias nodded. "Humanity did not prepare for war to conquer. We prepared to survive. And in doing so, we ensure that no threat can ever rise against us without consequence." Across the Dominion remnants, scattered ships attempted to flee. Entire fleets twisted into the gravity wells created by human devices. Hyperspace routes collapsed beneath them. Ships vanished into nothingness. The extinction of the Dominion became absolute, not through hatred or vengeance, but through preparation, patience, and inevitability. Inside Asterhaven, Elias turned to Mara. "This is the legacy we leave. he said. Not of destruction for its own sake, but of survival against impossible odds. We do not need to fight to win. We only need to be ready. Mara nodded. They believed they could conquer humanity with threats and arrogance. They were wrong. They underestimated patience, precision, and preparation, and now they will vanish entirely. The silence of space returned. No signals, no fleets, no communication from the Dominion. Their existence in the human system had been erased, leaving only empty space behind. Elias watched the monitors, quiet and composed. We did not surrender. We did not falter, and we ensured the survival of our species in a way no one else could have imagined. Mara added, Project Black Wake cannot be undone. No future conqueror will ever see it coming, and that is why humanity endures. Captain Vance transmitted a final report. All Dominion presence in the system has been neutralized. No survivors detected. Systems are stabilizing. Humans retain full control. Elias exhaled slowly. They demanded our surrender. We gave them extinction instead. And now, the lesson is written across the stars. Mara looked out at the darkness beyond the domes of Asterhaven. They underestimated us. Every fleet, every ship, every command, they thought we would panic. They thought fear would rule us. They were wrong. And now, no one else will forget it. The stars continued to shine above the human colonies. Space was quiet, but humanity's presence was stronger than ever. They had not conquered with weapons of destruction. They had survived with intelligence, patience, and preparation. The Dominion had demanded surrender. Humanity had answered with extinction. Elias spoke to Mara softly. This is the moment we planned for. They thought we were weak. They thought they could dictate the terms. They were wrong, and they paid the price for their arrogance. Mara nodded silently, understanding fully. The extinction of the Dominion was complete. The humans had not only survived, they had ensured that no species that underestimated them could ever threaten them again. Across Asterhaven, the city domes glowed as artificial light reflected off the observation domes. Humanity had survived a threat no other civilization had endured. They had turned patience into power, precision into victory, and planning into survival. And far beyond the last Dominion ship, the universe now remembered humanity. Not as a race that surrendered, but as a species that could not be defeated, not by threats, not by fear, and not by force. The silence of space carried a single, undeniable truth. Humans demanded nothing, yet ensured everything. They did not fight wars to conquer. They fought to survive. And when survival demanded it, they ended threats completely. The Dominion was gone. Humanity endured. And the stars themselves carried the memory of the species that refused to surrender. The Dominion was gone. Space that had once been filled with their fleets was now empty, silent, and still. Only movement came from human vessels carefully patrolling the system to ensure nothing had survived. Commanders reported no signs of enemy life, no signals, no ships. The conquest that had threatened humanity for generations had been erased without a single human casualty. Commander Elias Ward stood in the observation dome of Asterhaven. He gazed out at the stars, reflecting the light of distant suns. For decades, humans had feared the unknown. They had trained, prepared, and planned for threats beyond comprehension. And now, every precaution had been justified. Humanity had not only survived, it had dominated the battlefield through patience, intelligence, and foresight. Mara Solis stood beside him. It's finally over, she said softly, though her voice carried the weight of everything they had endured. They will never threaten us again. Elias nodded, but he did not speak. Words felt insufficient. He thought of the thousands of human engineers, scientists, soldiers, and civilians who had worked in silence for decades to prepare for this moment. Every plan, every device, every simulation had led to this outcome. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged stronger than anyone had imagined. Across the system, human fleets moved carefully, inspecting remnants of Dominion activity. They found nothing. It was as if the aliens had never existed. Entire sections of the Dominion Armada had been erased, destroyed by devices and traps humans had hidden in secret for decades. Humanity had not fired conventional weapons, yet they had achieved total victory. Captain Lyra Vance reported from a remote station near the outer planets. No Dominion ships remain. Every fleet has been neutralized. No survivors detected. The system is secure. Elias allowed himself a small smile. We did not fight as they expected. We did not strike as they imagined. We survived because we prepared, and we won because they underestimated us. Mara checked the final readings from Project Black Wake. The system is stable now. The distortions are contained. Nothing remains that could threaten human colonies. The Dominion is gone. In the aftermath, humanity began to understand the scale of what had been accomplished. Across Asterhaven and other colonies, leaders held emergency meetings, not because of threats, but to assess the consequences of survival. The devices that had erased the Dominion fleets had been powerful beyond comprehension. They could not be recreated, only maintained in the condition they had been left. Humanity had survived, but at a cost of responsibility that would last for generations. Lieutenant Eric Vale observed the reports from the outer sectors. It's hard to believe they are gone. Not a single survivor. Not a single signal. Every fleet, every command, everything erased. It's like they never existed. Elias nodded. That is exactly what we needed. The lesson is clear. Humanity cannot be underestimated. We survive because we prepare, and no threat can ever rise without consequence. Mara spoke quietly. We have won, but we must ensure this never happens again. No other species can misjudge humanity and survive. That is the new reality. Elias looked out at the stars. We will not forget what we faced. And we will make sure the universe remembers humanity, not as a weak species, but as one that endures. Across the colonies, communication channels reopened. Citizens who had fled the outer colonies returned. Refugees began to rebuild. Markets reopened, families reunited. Humanity had survived what no one thought possible, and they began to reclaim normal life. Yet the memory of the Dominion's threat lingered. Captain Lyra Vance addressed her team. We fought without firing a shot directly. We won without destroying our own worlds, and we ensured the safety of every human colony. That is something no other species could accomplish. In the control center, Mara Solis activated a final sequence. A record of the entire operation was being archived in secure databanks to be preserved for future generations. They need to know, she said. They need to understand what happened, why we survived, and what humanity is capable of. Elias added, It is a warning, not a threat. We survived because we were prepared. That is the truth we leave behind. Long after the Dominion was gone, a young explorer named Kale departed from a human colony toward the edge of explored space. He carried with him a small probe, programmed to broadcast a single repeating signal, a message to any civilization that might encounter it in the distant future. The message was simple. It contained no threat, no boast, no challenge. It was a warning. Humans survive. Humans prepare. Humans endure. As Kale traveled through the dark void between stars, the probe activated. Across the galaxy, the signal spread, unnoticed by most, yet recorded in every system it passed. It carried the story of a species that had been tested, a species that had been underestimated, and a species that had not only survived, but turned extinction itself into a lesson for the universe. Back on Asterhaven, Elias watched Kale's departure from the observation dome. The universe has changed, he said quietly. It will never forget humanity, and humanity will never be unprepared again. Mara looked at him. We gave them extinction instead of surrender, but we also gave humanity a future, one they must protect carefully, because survival carries responsibility beyond anything they have known before. We endured when we could have fallen. We survived when all odds were against us. That is our legacy. Not conquest, not power, but the refusal to surrender and the ability to outlast any threat. In the months that followed, humanity rebuilt with purpose. Colonies were strengthened, networks secured, and systems prepared for any future threats. Project Black Wake was dismantled carefully, leaving only the records of its success. Humanity had survived, but they understood that their survival depended on vigilance, preparation, and wisdom. Across the stars once occupied by the Dominion, nothing remained. Their fleets, their technology, their empire, erased. It was a silence so complete that even the most advanced sensors detected nothing. Yet humanity remembered everything. Every plan, every strategy, every precaution had worked perfectly. Humanity had turned fear into preparation, and preparation into survival. Kale's probe continued through the void, carrying humanity's warning to distant civilizations. And far beyond the edge of human-controlled space, the universe learned a simple truth. To underestimate humanity was to invite extinction. Elias and Mara watched the stars in silence, understanding the weight of their victory. They had not conquered the Dominion through aggression or force. They had survived through intelligence, patience, and foresight. And in doing so, they had changed the universe forever. The stars themselves reflected the lesson. Humanity had survived the impossible. Humanity had outlasted the predator. And humanity would endure, not because of strength alone, but because of the careful, deliberate, and unwavering will to survive against all odds. Elias finally spoke, his voice steady and calm. They demanded our surrender. We gave them extinction instead. Let that be remembered. Let the universe remember what happens when humans are underestimated. Mara nodded, understanding fully. They will never forget, and neither will we. The stars shone above Asterhaven, quiet and steady. Humanity remained, not as conquerors, not as aggressors, but as survivors. And in that survival was the greatest power of all, the knowledge that no threat, no force, and no empire could break a species that had prepared for the impossible. The Dominion was gone, and humanity endured. They had not only survived, they had ensured that the lesson would echo across the stars forever. And in the distance, beyond the last human systems, Kale's probe transmitted humanity's warning endlessly into the void. A single truth traveled with it. Humanity survives, humanity prepares, and humanity endures. The universe would remember. The humans would never surrender again.